you know how you did on that goal.
Not to say anything, let it go.
Yeah. I'm so sorry to ask you that question today. I know it's not the year before. No, it's fine. I was like, no, it's not that. It's because, I read it, or like right when you sent it out, I read it, and then that got added, which is, I saw that got added. I just never looked today. And then when I looked at it, I'm like, oh no, now I have a question. And now it's today. What is this? Natalie? Yeah. Thank you. I wonder if they'll turn out the same.
Do I have to make them?
I know. Do they make themselves? Are they in there?
They make themselves.
With my salad, it's going to be on the camera.
Oh, goodness. Oh.
Hi, welcome everyone. Good evening. I call the Tuesday, May 7th, 2024 Peninsula School District Board of Directors meeting to order. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Is there any discussion prior to the vote on the approval of the agenda?
Yes, I would like to add an item under number 7, old business, to have a follow-up for the HIB study session.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved. I make a motion to approve amended agenda.
It's been moved by David and seconded by Lori to approve the amended agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is carried. The agenda is approved. We'll go right into comments from the community. So I will call your name. Please come to the podium and state your first and last name. You will have 3 minutes to speak. So if you don't get through all 3 minutes, then you may, of course, submit your comments by email. First up this evening, we have Darcy McKnight.
Hi, my name's Darcy McKnight, and I'm a longtime resident of Gig Harbor, a mom of 2 successful PHS graduates, and I'm also a high school teacher in a neighboring school district with 38 years of teaching experience. My school district had an amazing multicultural assembly last week, which celebrated many, but not all, of the beautiful cultures represented by the students at my school. The students in the audience were enthusiastic, respectful, and extremely excited to see the various cultures showcased by so many people that they see in the hallways every day. In my school, as in our country, our diversity is a strength to be elevated. While Peninsula School District may not be as culturally diverse as my school district, diversity should still be celebrated wherever and whenever possible. We have a problem here in the Peninsula School District. I see the many small ways that the amazing teachers in this district are attempting to help stop bullying by starting inclusive clubs in various schools. Bravo to them. They're doing a great job. As usual, they are leading the way. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are things to be celebrated, not denigrated. It has come to my attention via the online news, Gig Harbor Now, that even though so many of the on the front line are working hard to help make sure that bullying is seen as harmful, we have a person who is using their position of leadership to openly brag about having been, quote, the first school board president in the first district in the state to ban controversial issues such as CRT, DEI, and all that horrible stuff, end quote. To that person, I'd like to say congratulations, I guess, on protecting the school district from critical race theory, something that actually never has been and never would be taught in a K-12 school in the first place. As for diversity, equity, and inclusion being included as horrible stuff, that language and mindset just feels like a way of ensuring that bullying will continue under such leadership. I consider bragging about shutting down pathways to solving the problem as what's really horrible stuff. Perhaps one might like to consider starting to be part of the solution to the problems we have with bullying in the district right now, instead of about bragging about standing in the way of solving them. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Schrade.
Hi everyone, my name is Mez Schrade. My birth name is Crystal if you would like to Google me. You will find my published research and that's likely it. I'm a gender non-conforming art therapist with a master's degree in art psychotherapy and counseling. And Mez, a name I've used in various capacities for nearly 20 years, is my chosen name of affirming my gender identity. I come from a family of academics, scholars, PhDs, professionals, business owners, and very queer humans. Why add our accolades and successes? Because I like to celebrate that despite the brutal and violent stories of trans discrimination, hostility, and harm woven through our nation's history, and despite all the uphill battles we face, including increased risk of houselessness and job insecurity, we are still here and finding ways to thrive. 2 weeks ago was my first time attending a school board meeting. During that meeting, I was so shook by the audacious use of freedom of speech that I had to leave. I thought, while we cherish our freedom of speech, do we not hold regard for our fellow Gig Harbor neighbors? Do we not view those sharing space here as worthy of their dignity and humanity? I would like to address the vitriol of that speech. Please note the following information could be highly triggering. One speaker compared the trans and trans-allied communities to Nazis. Instead of being recognized and acknowledged as being one of the groups specifically targeted and executed by Nazis for being trans, we were ignorantly paralleled to this sociopathic and murder-hungry group of humanity's depraved history. Not only is this blatantly ignorant and wildly false, it increases the danger we face in a society where politicians are attempting to eradicate us, and community leaders have publicly expressed explicit fantasies about our demise. Last year, Pastor Jason Graber of Shore Foundation Baptist Church in Spokane, Washington, called for the executing of parents of transgender children. He said they need to be shot in the back of the head, and then we can string them up above a bridge so the public can see. In 2022, Pastor Dylan Oz of Steadfast Baptist Church in Watauga, Texas, angrily declared to his congregation that gay people are dangerous to society, that all homosexuals are pedophiles, should be sentenced to death, and lined up against the wall and shot in the back of the head. Not only does this rhetoric reveal a Christian male Handmaid's Tale fantasy, it increases the strength of the depravity and sociopathic desires that live within the larger trans-hostile imagination. Our comparison to Nazis was a public comment that occurred during a week where male church deacon Jordan Henderson of Wellspring Fellowship Church in Lake Bay, Washington, was arrested for allegedly assaulting multiple female children at our local elementary school. Stories like his are so common that while deeply disturbing and upsetting aren't even shocking anymore. The insensitivity that this commenter showed during a week where our community was in a state of dysregulation and overwhelm, worrying, are our children, including my son, who just started public school 3 weeks ago, safe here, was enraging. And I beseech her and all who
Thank you, Ms.
saw
Schrade.
value in her
That's your
comparison to recognize and acknowledge the harm of her speech and refocus on the actual risks
your
our
time.
children
Thank you.
face in school, gun violence, and child
Next up,
predators.
we
Thank
have
you.
Molly Vaughn. Molly Vaughn. Okay, next we have Christy Wahala.
Good evening, board. Christy Wahala. I just wanted to take a minute. I don't have anything prepared, but it's Teacher Appreciation Week, and I really want to shine a light on teachers in a certain program that I've worked in the last 6 years in Peninsula School District, the track program. These teachers deserve a public shout out because they put themselves in harm's way every single day to support the highest at-risk kids in our district. I mean, I can't even, I'm not gonna list examples because confidentiality, but let's just say they get beat up, they get yelled at, they get the scraps from this district. And it's really, really heartbreaking to see what they have to do, and the ingenuity that they have is great, but they shouldn't have to have that. They should have more resources and support from this district to be able to manage these students. These students come from homes that are broken many times. They have trauma beyond what most people can imagine, and they pour their heart out to them. One in particular, Kristen Malden, I want to give a shout out to. She's the PHS track teacher after being a paraeducator in the track program. She got her degree. As a single mom, she started last year, was her first year at PHS track, and she turned that program around. Those students were not leaving that classroom when she took it over, and now they're in with their peers every day and only have one period in track, and it's amazing. And she has done that as a single mom while doing her master's program, which she just finished last week. Super exciting. She's actually going to Yakima for her graduation this weekend. But she's amazing. She spends so much of her own money on her care closet for these kids, on supplies, on incentives. She has 2 paraeducators. I mean, she's at her caseload basically, and has been told, you know, we're not going to hire a second teacher until you're almost double your caseload, so just buckle up. You're in for the ride. I mean, it's crazy what these teachers do, and that's at every grade level. And her heart for these students is so big, and she's so committed to pouring everything into them that she inspires me every day. And I hope that one day I can show her the inspiration that she's shown me, because I just feel like there's very few people like Kristen out there. And I know there's a lot of teachers in this district who care as much about their kids as she does. So they all deserve a shout out because they do a lot, and with not a whole lot of backup a lot of times. So that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you. Next up, we have Aria Messer.
My name is Aria Messer. I have 2 kids who attend public school here. Marie Beecham, respected educator and advocate, has this to say about privilege. Privilege isn't the presence of perks and benefits, it's the absence of obstacles and barriers. If you have a hard time recognizing your privileges, focus on what you don't have to go through. Let that fuel your empathy and action. To better illustrate this, here's a game called Put a Finger Down. Put all your fingers up on one hand or imagine that you are, and when I say a statement, only put a finger down if it applies to you. Put a finger down if anyone in your direct ancestry was pushed into living on a reservation because they were considered savages, having a different culture than colonists invading from Europe. Put a finger down if anyone in your direct ancestry was prohibited from businesses and schools where those considered first-class citizens attended. Put a finger down if the color of your skin or features on your face or body have ever resulted in people yelling inappropriate slurs at you. Put a finger down if anyone in your direct ancestry was not able to vote in a USA election due to their race or gender. Put a finger down if you have been treated negatively as a part of the LGBTQ+ community or an advocate for them. If you have all fingers up, you are privileged. You have not had to go through these obstacles and barriers to having and enjoying freedom or the lasting negative impact of those who have. It is privileged to believe that it is divisive for students to have the opportunity to learn history as it really happened versus what was literally whitewashed, and ignoring the amazing contributions of women, people of color, LGBTQ+ people, and other minorities. It is a privilege to assume that diversity, equity, and inclusion teaches students to feel like victims, when the hope has always been that knowledge and openness will eliminate ignorance so that victimization no longer happens. The only divisive thing about DEI, CRT, and LGBTQ+ rights and the like are the people trying to ban them so that they can continue living comfortably in their privilege while ignoring or even contributing to the obstacles of others. When one advocates, hey, we're people too with things to contribute and we just want to be seen or at the very least treated with fairness and tolerance, and that is a hardship for you to have open-mindedness and empathy, then you are privileged. And that is what is wrong within this school board, the tone set by certain members of this school board, and why kids don't feel like they belong, as the records have indicated for the last several years. Check your privilege.
Thank you. Next, we have Chris Doherty.
Hi, good evening. My name is Chris Doherty, and I'm the parent of 2 students in the PSD district. Over the past few months, parents have brought to the board numerous concerns about issues that are affecting our students in our schools, with widely publicized instances of racism and LGBTQ hate, along with persistently low student scores on self-reported belongingness, and now serious child sexual abuse allegations against a teacher in the district. We have continued to ask for greater transparency from the board about how you are addressing these problems, but continue to hear almost nothing. We, the voters who elected you to the board, do not know where you stand on many of these issues or whether you are serious about acknowledging and fixing them. The board continues to say they are not obligated to respond to public comments, but the board is not obligated not to respond to them either. As a parent, I don't know how to interpret the board's silence in anything other than being unwilling to go on public record. Thankfully, at a recent statewide partisan political event, one board member did go on record, finally making their views public on these issues. Educating our students about diversity and accurately teaching history, this board member stated, quote, I was the first school board president, the first school district in the state to ban controversial social issues such as CRT, DEI, and all that horrible stuff. That was a big proud moment for me and my school board that we were able to ban those horrible socially divisive programs that tell our children to be divisive and that they're oppressive and victims, unquote. And about preparing our students for college, they said, quote, if every single high school graduate, in my opinion, went into the skilled trades and didn't go to a four-year university, they could all go bankrupt and that would save America, unquote. This generation of children is the most diverse in history. After graduating, our students will be surrounded by other people that have unique life experiences and characteristics. And while college is certainly not for everyone, being pro-trade schools should not inhibit other students who wish to pursue a higher education. The fact that you have a sitting board member having these radical ideas of supporting anti-diversity education and being anti-college, but won't voice them to the parents and voters here on record is alarming. When a board member is dismissive of diversity and fails to comprehend the importance of representation, it's often because they view things through the lens of white privilege. Their inability to acknowledge the significance of representation in schools stems from their lifelong experience of always seeing themselves represented. Our community deserves transparency regarding the board's stance on higher education and transparency on the onslaught of racial and anti-LGBTQ slurs and abuses occurring daily. Please, as we have been asking for months, make your views, priorities, and plans on these critical issues clear by communicating them publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Greg Larson.
Hi, my name is Greg Larson. I'm a resident of Gig Harbor, and I'm retired. Sorry. I hold a PhD in reproductive physiology, and in the early 1990s was certified in secondary education here in the state of Washington. My wife and I are here again today to thank you for holding the educational freedom of our children to the highest standard. However, we are concerned about the continued intentional spread of disinformation across the country and here in these board meetings during public comment. Disinformation takes us and you away from the good work you do. It is most dangerous, and it provides false information and intentionally misstates facts, which are deliberately intended to mislead. That's the definition. Unrecognized and unchecked, this has led to dangerous, hateful laws and policies being passed in other states and by other school boards. We in this state and in this school district continue to advocate and actively support this school board and its stated objective to provide innovative, rigorous programs set within a culture of inclusiveness and belonging for students and teachers regardless of race, color, gender, religion, or ethnicity. At the last meeting, incredibly dangerous disinformation was communicated, such as equating the LGBTQ community with Hitler, when in fact Hitler made every effort to exterminate the LGBTQ and Jewish communities. This continued with the weaponizing of the CAS review on puberty blockers, when in fact the American Medical, Pediatric, and Psychiatric Associations all continue to support LGBTQ and gender-affirming care. Finally, it was suggested that libraries have banned books, and then they went on to reference these books, which in fact dehumanize LGBTQ people and express racist and anti-Semitic views. Thank you for actively embracing and driving an education for our children that is free from educational restrictions and disinformation. We fully support your efforts to expand open discussions on challenging topics, exploring different views and opinions, seeking understanding. As our children gain better understanding, they also gain empathy, kindness, and compassion, which is very much needed in today's world. The mission statement says it all. And I paraphrase, our goal is to be the best school district in the state through innovative and rigorous programs and within a culture of belonging. And we believe that every child deserves support on their own unique journey of excellence every day. We want to thank the teachers who are on the front line, and thank you for the good work you do on behalf of our children. Children are our future. They deserve nothing less than the best from all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Justin Vautrin.
What was the last name?
I come up here tonight as a parent of 2 children in the school district to make public comments about all of the troubling issues going on in our schools. And I thought to myself, what was going to be the best way to utilize my time that would make the most impact? At first I thought, well, I could ask for an uncomfortably long moment of silence to raise awareness for the students, such as my daughter, who are routinely harassed, bullied, and intimidated. But then I realized, from the public perspective, the district continues to remain silent on some of these issues, and so we don't need any more silence. Then I thought, well, I could try to emphasize that we live in difficult times and that things are much different now than they were in the past. But that's not entirely true either, because issues such as drug abuse, racism, and bullying aren't new. They didn't just start happening since all of you joined the board. Those issues have always been there. So I spent some time going back through hours of video for more perspective, and I witnessed the most courageous moment I think I've ever seen at any of these meetings. Recently, a young student active in our community came up here and spelled it out for us. This student plainly stated how they experienced daily doses of sexism, witnessed acts of racism and homophobia throughout the halls of their school day after day after day. And after being moved by such a brave act, I expected there to be some affirmation or empathy, or really any reaction to such honest yet horrific feedback about the learning environment in our schools. But instead, I ended up seeing the truth, as only minutes later, during a discussion about diversity, equity, and inclusion, do we hear a board member ask a student about their feedback, questioning their responses with, "Did you answer it 100% truthful?" and "Were you in a bad mood?" That was the moment of clarity. That was the moment when I realized life has been difficult for some of us. It's clear that maybe it wasn't difficult for all of us. So looking up at the board of directors, we can see the lack of diversity. We also see a sense of privilege, but most of all, we see the lack of listening with the intent to understand when it comes to these comments. So this is my comment. More so, this is my question. Why can't you be brave? Be brave like the student who put their entire reputation on the line by coming in here to tell you exactly what's going on in our schools. And instead of questioning them, why don't you start listening to understand, and then hopefully collaborate and find better resources to take action to protect our students and my children. And please, don't thank me for my comment. Just accept that we have significant and severe issues going on in our schools and try to do something more productive about it.
All right, next we have Peter Frazier.
Hi, my name is Peter Fraser, and I'm the parent of a Peninsula School District student. My pronouns are he, him. I also want to acknowledge my privilege as a white cisgender man, my complicity, and also my own implicit biases. On March 19th, you were presented with a letter with over 230 signatures of parents, guardians, and community members that wanted you to immediately address the pervasive acts and words of discrimination, anti-queer hate, and racism against BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color, LGBTQI+, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, disabled, and neurodivergent students. In case the email never came through, I provided another copy of the letter for you tonight. This was the same board meeting that was devoted to the issue of harassment, intimidation, and bullying in our schools, which was a welcome discussion. And we have received an email from Superintendent Barr and the assurance of a meeting at some point. While I won't pretend to know what it's like to be a superintendent or to serve on a school board, it appears as if the issue has not been elevated to a priority level within the district. So I want to offer some ideas on how the first action item we recommended in our letter, acknowledge the problem, could be carried out. And these are on the back of the letter that you have. So number one, as a district superintendent and school board, you could have a community listening tour around the district. Hear from people in our district who have been affected by racism, discrimination, and anti-queer hate. Truly listen to the stories and take note of how they affect students and their families. Number two, you could put an acknowledgement on the front page of our website that says that the Peninsula School District acknowledges the problem of racism, discrimination, and anti-queer hate, or harassment, intimidation, and bullying in the district, and is working to be a more welcoming district. Number three, a little time could be set aside during each board meeting to address strategies for how a district can be more welcoming and inclusive. Number four, You could also devote a small amount of time to acknowledge past incidents of racism, discrimination, and anti-queer hate without using names, of course. Number 5, you could assemble a focus group of 10 people made up of students, staff, volunteers, parents, guardians, to address how to better address the racism, discrimination, and anti-queer hate going on in the district. And it would be essential to center the BIPOC, LGBTQI+, disabled, and neurodivergent voices in this group. Those are just 5 suggestions that could be acted upon soon. We know there are so many more, but please urgently acknowledge the problem so it can be successfully worked on. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment for the evening. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by Lori to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Consent agenda has been approved. We are moving on to the reports section of our evening. Our first report is item 6.1, Capital Projects and Facilities Update. So we have Patrick Gillespie here, our Director of Capital Projects, to make that presentation.
Thanks for having me today. So as you said, Capital Projects and Facilities Update. First time, we're going to talk a little about safety and security and technology and some of the stuff we're doing with the levy dollars. There we go. So on this slide, you'll see some fencing. The top 2 are the fencing that we're going to be doing. Gig Harbor, you'll see the lower where it's been done. And I still like what Logan said last week's meeting, or 2 weeks ago. A few hundred feet of fence basically popped up. And so that's what you see in the picture down below. I thought he was going to be here today to hear that, but I still find it funny what he said. PHS fencing is scheduled to start the week of June 1st if everything goes well. Next thing that we're doing with some safety and security money is we're fixing some cracks at the Gig Harbor High School tennis courts. We'll be also fixing the net post and resurfacing all 4 courts, making it a much better playable surface. The next thing that we've done with some of that money is we've upgraded our pool controllers. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner, which somehow got turned sideways only here. It was an old controller that runs our pool chemistry. We've upgraded to newer technology that allows me to see it remotely. You'll see one of the many screens I can see down below. I can make adjustments. So it's really kind of a bunch of things. It's technology, it's safety. It allows us to better manage our pools and keep those using it safe. Next one, ESC security. Okay. And we're going to keep doing the sideways picture. Sorry. Didn't show up that way in mine. We are adding some doors at the lobby at each of the hallways to the north and south of it to keep people from just wandering through our building, which we've had some issues with recently. And we're also looking at moving the glass front doors back 4 or 5 feet, creating more of a secure vestibule in the area for safety for staff at the ESC. Upcoming projects that we have going. We are looking at part of the 2019 bond was to reduce the number of students in portable classrooms. So with the addition of extra capacity with the new elementary schools, we're able to remove 2 portables at Harbor Heights Elementary. Those are the 2 sort of highlighted in yellow there that you can kind of see in the middle next to the playground. Those will allow the ability to create a better playground space for our students. And we'll be talking more about that in a future board meeting as I give an update later on.
Okay.
So good things happening there. Eagle Quest at Evergreen Elementary School. So that's a program that is starting up there. And we are going to, matter of fact, on the consent agenda tonight was the approval of moving forward with this project. Is taking the existing preschool classroom and updating it using similar, either the same or similar materials that we did with the new elementary school. Taking down some walls and in a storage area and the old OT and creating another classroom so that we can accommodate this program. We will be using some of our SS&T dollars for this, where we'll be adding exterior doors that'll go out to the outdoor learning area, which is a big part of this program. So instead of exiting into the front that's not secure, they'll be able to go to the outside, as well as some other pieces of it. Can't fund it all with that, but just those pieces that fit under that levy we'll be working with. Let's see here. Keep moving on. Donations. Really excited. We've got, I'd like to thank all of our VPOs and booster groups out there. They work really hard for dollars they donate to the district, so I thought it'd be important to show some of us today. Is that Minner Creek, their VPO is getting some parallel bars. That is not them. They're going to be on order here pretty soon, getting those going. And a Gaga Ball pit. And then the other three pictures are the additional athletic storage that was donated, dollars for that the district bought, and that will add 4 20-foot Connex container storage units that are custom made. Coaches, athletic directors, everybody had input in it, and hopefully they're getting what they wanted. And we're really excited about those. So we were able to get them in with a little effort in the spaces we wanted, but it was kind of fun doing it, even though it was a little bit of a challenge. So thank you to our boosters and volunteer groups. We do have some risk pool claim items out there. We had the water damage at Goodman this past January. We did start some of that remediation over spring break, removing the drywall, doing a flood cut to make sure everything was dry. For the most part, we're really good. That's and then we're going out to bid on putting it all back together. So you should see that bid process starting to take place here in the next week or so, and then we'll bring that to the board for approval. And then we also had power spike at Gig Harbor that took out their fire panel. We're working with the risk pool on that claim as well, and that took a new panel, reprogramming, and a week of fire watch. So that was fun. We do appreciate the staff that worked around the clock doing the fire watch all night long. So thank you to them. We are, as part of our long-term facility staff, looking at athletic field feasibility and long-range plan. So we'll be kind of talking more about that as we move along. But, you know, I put every field up there that's at the secondary level. I was going to try and put the elementary schools too, but at some point didn't all fit. Capital projects update. We are just wrapping up as many of the paperwork items at the elementary schools to close those out. Kopachuk, really our contractor, is down to commissioning, finishing up some commissioning stuff, punch list items, just a few of those, and they're working to wrap up and get out of there. And KPMS, the general contractor, continues to work to complete base bid work and starting to work on punch list items, and that one's moving along nicely as well. Long Range Facility Advisory Board. So we got applications in. Donata and I over here. Donata, say hi. She went through all those. She's really going to be happy with me tomorrow. So we went through all those. We tried to get a diverse group of people that had some experience, some that didn't, just parents, different parts of the community, you know, Key Peninsula here, Artendale, kind of all over the place, so that we have a good mix of people in there. Try to get some people that maybe haven't done this before too, that are new voice. Try to make sure we have people that will be paying the taxes in our district as well. So we have some staff too. Athletic director, I think we got our drama departments covered, a principal on there. So we're going to have a really good voice and input from a lot of people. So we're really excited about that group. We have called all those people and given updates. So hopefully if they didn't talk to them directly, they'll have a voicemail and they'll get back to us. And I think you saw that on the consent agenda tonight to approve as well. So appreciate both of those items. I was asked to talk a little bit about ICOS and stuff. So that's the information and condition of schools from OSPI. Our schools, we had well, technically we only have one right now, two. We have Harbor Ridge that was in the asset protection program. You saw last board meeting, you approved on the consent agenda, the assessment that we did that year. Annually, we have to do, every year I have to go out, or someone from my department has to go out and do an evaluation of that. Every 6 years with the BCA, we need to hire a certified outside consultant to do that, and then they enter all that information in there. So we've had Harbor Ridge since 2022. You got to do this for 30 years. The last 6 year was done in 2023. Don't do the math; it's a little off for the 6 years if you do it, because I know you're all going to go home and do the math every 6 years. That was the study and survey that we did 2018 or 17. That allowed us to be a 6 year one, but it kind of threw the years off a little bit. The ones that will be going in is Swiftwater will be going in next year. It is done based on when the board approves final acceptance, so Swiftwater is already done. When we get Artendale and Evergreen, there will be APP schools as well, which will start that cycle of annual. They'll be bringing all of those schools to you as well as Harbor Ridge. And then every 6 years, we'll have to do that report. Since they were all done at the same time, we're going to have 4 schools kind of on that cycle of every 6 years. Pioneer will not be an APP school, and the whole reason for that is we did not receive SCAP dollars from the state for it, which is one of the requirements for that. So you won't be seeing that come through. Obviously, we will be maintaining that building and making sure it stays in good shape just like all the others, because we do care and we want to keep these buildings for a long period of time. KPMS and Kopachuk, I did talk with my person with OSPI that kind of runs the department, or at least our region, and he wasn't 100% sure if KPMS and Kopachuk would go in because they're remodels and it's based on how many square feet that you add, so we may not have those coming to you on a regular basis. And then one of the other things with all this is, all the new schools. The good news is that we're not putting all of our day-to-day maintenance dollars into those, so we're able to do a little bit more with the dollars that we do have available at the other schools that, didn't get some of the dollars from the bonds. We're really excited about that and look forward to keep working on those buildings as well. Questions?
Questions? Yeah. Hey, Pat, on the portables from Harbor Heights, what did you do with those? How are they going to be reused? Or
So what we'll do is we'll put it out to bid, and the contractor will decide how they want to remove it. So it could just be demoed out and gone. They are a little bit older, so they're starting to kind of a little bit on the downhill side. When we did Kopachuk last year, the contractor we thought was going to demo it, they actually put it on trailers, took it out, and repurposed it. So it really, our bid documents are really to get the lowest possible bid to get them removed. So it will really come down to the contractor and the way they feel best fit to get rid of them.
so we don't donate them to any kind of group or anything like that?
We don't have a plan to. Generally, we've looked at that, and it winds up being a lot more of a hassle. There's moving costs, and then getting them to come and get them out. A lot of the people that think it's great to donate it don't realize all the costs associated with moving a building like that, and it becomes a little bit of a mess.
Okay, the long-range facility advisory board, have they already been, all the members been selected and contacted?
Yeah, we went through and selected them all, and then they've been contacted. And like I said, they've all either been talked to personally or voicemail's been left to call back. And so if they haven't been talked to directly, we hope when they call back, we'll be talking to them in the next day or so. And then we'll be working on an agenda and a timeline to get that started. We are coming up on the summer, so I'll be working with Ashley on when that might actually happen. So I don't know if we'll do a little bit of a meet and greet real quick, or if we'll kind of wait till September. But we want to make sure everybody's aware that we're looking at, we're moving forward with that, and that we have the people there. So.
I guess that's what I meant was when would they be stood up? And
Right.
as far as what they work on, will they be privy to executive session discussions at the board? Just check.
I don't. To the best of my knowledge, no. That's when no.
Okay.
We would.
You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
would they be made aware of some of the stuff we've been discussing about? I didn't know.
I don't think I don't think anything you guys talk about in executive session would come out there.
Okay, you know what I mean. Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
Sorry. Yeah, no, we would be looking at it much broader and, you know, here's what we've done, here's where we're going, here's some, you know, thoughts. We want, you know, people to have input. We're not going to just tell them this is where we're headed. We want to get as much information and, you know, take all that, put it together over a period of time. So as things become, you know, as we talk about it, you know, we'll keep it within what we know and what we've done.
So Patrick, we had a conversation a little bit earlier, so we would like to have a meeting in June, just a meet and greet.
Sure.
And then really some history so that everyone's on the same page. So that's going to take a little while. So looking forward to that. Thank you for spearheading that with Ashley. Really looking forward to having that really dynamic group. So that'll be exciting. It'll be exciting to celebrate what we've done and then look at what we can do together. So
Yeah, it'll be really fun. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, so close. One more step and there was no way.
So a couple questions. Do we have an estimated time when KPMS will be done? Or a date?
The goal is to have the contractor gone before his teachers are back in the summer. And other than a little bit of punch list items and things like that. So that's the current goal right now.
So I know PHS is probably the next highest priority building that's roofs and systems. What else? What's your next priority? Are there any roofs that are leaking?
Oh, okay. Like, right. So the good news is when I started 10 years ago, it's like if it rained, my office phone would just light up like a Christmas tree and there'd be roof leaks everywhere. We've got it down to, you know, if it rains really hard, we might have one here or there. We do have, you know, roofing companies that we bring out to fix some more difficult ones. We've had a little bit of a problem at PHS that I think we've got resolved now. Okay. But for the most part, they're just kind of, seems like if there's a really hard rain, there's one somewhere, which kind of is pretty normal. But right off the top of my head, you know, there's still some roofing to be done at Gig Harbor that we've done sections at a time. A little bit there. There's some at Peninsula. Henderson Bay is probably going to pop up on there at some point. They have one of the CertainTeed roofs that had some issues. So if you look at it in the right sunlight, you'll see a little bit of fiberglass on the shingles. However, it's not leaking, so it's like we're going to, you know, get as much life out of that. And
how old is that building?
So that must have been 20. Do you remember? Was that 2004, 5? I'm going to say it's 19 to 20 years, give or take. Sorry, that's.
Yeah, and it was a temporary building, modular.
Yeah, it was built sort of modular, and then the company was building it, went bankrupt. So the story I was told went bankrupt, and then they built it, finished it stick built. So the roof was probably done more like a regular building, would be my assessment. But yeah, it's a little bit of a goofy building. It's safe and sound and works. But yeah, the story behind it is interesting, how it started and how it finished.
So last thing, I was on facilities planning board 25, 30 years ago. There was some great data. I'm hoping that you're doing that research now, demographics of the growth patterns, kind of stuff. I'd love to see that. Or front information, very beneficial to everybody.
Me personally, I'm not, but I think I know someone that might have that information that's here.
Okay.
Maybe. So I'll be talking with him and see if we can pull some of that. And then we also have some contacts at the county that might be able to help with some of that too.
All I got.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have item 6.2 next. That's our special education update with Jana Rush, who is the Director of Special Education for the district.
Thank you. So I would like to begin by introducing my two colleagues, our two special education coordinators. I'm not going to ask them to come up, but I will have them stand. So Kathy McCutcheon is our elementary special education coordinator, and Rachel Olson is our secondary special education coordinator. So they work with all of the schools throughout the district in supporting the needs there. So, but they are integral to our special education department functioning, so I wanted to make sure that they were recognized this evening. So we have 297 special education staff in the district and a little over 1,300 special education students. We provide specially designed instruction and for students that qualify for special education. In a continuum of services, a variety of services, a variety of programs to meet all of the needs of our students. So this is a graph that I showed you last year, and I updated it with some new information for this year, just so you kind of had an idea of kind of where the lay of the land is, right? Where are our students, and where do they get served, and what programs do they belong to? And so you can see some of the areas have grown, some of those areas have reduced in numbers, and so this is kind of an interesting thing to keep track of, to kind of see where our growth is happening and where students are moving from program to program and things like that. I had a similar slide as this one last year as well. Wanted to give you some updated information. So that top white box is directly off of the OSPI report card for our district. It shows two lines. The top line is students without disabilities, enrollment-wise, and then our students with disabilities are represented with that yellow line at the bottom. And we currently this year have 14.7% of students within the district are students with disabilities and are served through special education. So our average from 2014 to 2022, because I didn't have all of the individual percentages up there for you, was 14.3. So there were some years that it was a little bit higher in around 15, and I think the lowest one was in the 13s, percentage-wise. The bottom graph shows our percentage of students who are in special education who are served 80 to 100% of their time in the general education setting. So the turquoise bars are the percentage statewide, and it hovers right around 60%, a little bit lower than 60% on some of the metrics for the state. The Peninsula School District percentages are represented in the lighter color. So with our goal in 2026 of having 80% of our students in special education served in that spending 80% or more of their time in the general education setting, really working on those inclusionary practices, the universal design for learning, a lot of the MTSS, the multi-tiered systems of support, those tier 1 strategies and tier 2 strategies that are provided for students so that their needs are met in the general education setting and they don't need to access special education services outside of that, the general education setting. So our percentage dropped a little bit this year. We were a little bit higher last year, but we're moving forward and putting into place more practices and tools in the classroom for staff and for students to make that happen. It was a request this year that I give some information about the budget. So Ashley was kind enough to give me lots of reports to review. And so to summarize it and make it simple, I have a column for revenue, a column for expenditures, and then there's a gap. So our state special education revenues are a little over $16 million. We expend out-of-state special education, a little over 21.5 million. Our federal special education revenues are about 1.9 million and about 1.9 in expenditures. So the difference between our revenues and our expenditures are paid out of our state apportionment for basic education. Our district chooses not to use any levy funding for special education. So what is not funded through state special education funding and federal special education funding is paid for out of our basic education allocation. So last year, I applied for, it's yearly, happens yearly through the special education department, a little over 1 million, I actually applied for $1.2 million in safety net funding, which offsets some of that gap that we have, and was awarded a little over $1 million. That is about $400,000 than was awarded the year previously. And I was looking back through this week of our safety net kind of submissions in years past, and there were years where we were only asking for $250,000 or maybe $300,000. So significantly increased our safety net award last year. This year, we're looking at applying for a little over $1.7 million as an offset. So we won't know. The final application is due on Friday. And so I have some updates to finish this week, and then we'll know this summer what the actual award will be. Couple of celebrations. Our leaver survey, and if that's something that hasn't been explained to you before, is we are asked to, by OSPI, survey our students who left 2 years prior. So this would be for the students who graduated or were in attendance left our system between age 16 and 21 in 2022. So we surveyed them. We actually have to make phone calls to all of the families and the students if we can actually get a hold of the students, and we ask them some questions. You know, what are you doing now? Essentially what it is. Are you going to college? Are you going to a trade school? Are you in the military? Are you employed? And reaching out to those families to find out what's happening after students are leaving our system. So the survey that we completed this year was for the students from 2022. So we had a response rate that was almost 10% higher than we had before. So we had a response rate of over 80%, and which is excellent, far above the state average. And when we're asking those questions about what are you doing now, it's really about engagement. And so our engagement rate actually for this group grew 10%, more than 10%. So we're looking for, so it was actually saying that those kiddos, over 75% of the kids that we were able to survey are engaged, which means they are employed, or they're attending school, or they're in the military. They have something that they're not just sitting at home. They're not doing that. They actually have something that they're proud of and that they're engaged in. So that is really, really exciting. I'm really happy to see those scores. Another celebration is that last year at this time, we had about 6 classes that were part of our co-teach, and that was really located only at 2 of our schools. So one of the pieces of work that we did this summer and last spring in preparation for this school year was really increasing the capacity of the teachers and the schools at the secondary level to be able to offer what we call a co-teach. And a co-teach is a special education teacher and a general education teacher working side by side with a group of students within a classroom. Some of those students are special education, some of those students are not. And they're working together, they're supporting all of the students in the classroom. The students who are special education are receiving their specially designed instruction in that general education setting. And so it was very successful this year. We went from 6 classes last year to 30 classes. All of our secondary schools have co-teach classes in English language arts and math. It looks a little bit different. In each of those settings, in a lot of those classes, it looks a little bit different. And some schools decided to focus on English language arts. Some schools decided to focus on math. Some schools really decided to kind of bite off both. And they all have plans to keep that going and add more classes for next year. So that is really exciting as well.
So when deciding to co-teach, is this something that is requested of teachers, or do they offer or volunteer? Like how has
Yes.
How has this evolved? From 6 to 30 is a big jump.
It is a big jump, and really it started at the principal level last year, right? We're talking about we have this goal of 80% of our students in that least restrictive environment. How are we going to do it? Here's a lot of ways you can make this happen in your school. One of them is co-teach. And so they had great conversations, the secondary principals did. I reached out to them after that initial conversation and said, what do you want to bite off? What do you need support from me? And they said, well, I think this teacher really might be great at it. And I said, well, see if they're interested. Or they went back, some of them went back to their staff, and their staff said, hey, count me in. I'm going to do it. I want to do it. This is my passion. So it really has depended upon school by school how they built the capacity and which teachers they tapped on the shoulder or which teachers volunteered. But it's growing in success, right? And so now more people want to be involved.
It's just interesting because we heard so much about co-teaching in the SIP reports, and that was right on the heels of reading, just some other articles nationally about not necessarily co-teaching in the special education sense, but just co-teaching as like larger classrooms with multiple teachers, just in terms of a way to increase engagement for everybody.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
That's really, and where I was going with it and got distracted is really for those two teachers, right?
Yes.
To not be alone, to be supported and to have, know that somebody has your back for the day. It was really exciting. So
yes.
that's really great to see those numbers.
I'm excited to see, going from 30 this year, where it goes for next year.
And that cert for the special education teachers in a secondary math classroom, for example, do they have dual certifications, or are they focused primarily on the SPED programming? Or if they're working with general ed students and SPED in a secondary math, that could be, for someone like me who doesn't have that math background, I would imagine it would be challenging. So what does that look like?
So it's a partnership.
Sure.
Right? So a lot of times the special education teacher is available to be working with all of the students in the classroom. The general education teacher is available to be working with all of the students in the classroom. But the partnership piece comes into, okay, what instructional strategies can we try with this group of students? Or what are we going to do that might work differently, right? Are we going to, pull a group back? Or are we going to do something different? And a lot of that, even if you're not a math expert, you might have other tools and strategies in your pocket that you can supply, right, to the classroom that would help increase that opportunity for everyone. Yeah. Level that playing field, give more options and choices.
How many of our teachers are dual certificated?
Our special education teachers, dual certified, I don't have that number off the top of my head. Correct.
In those classrooms where it has the co-teaching,
yes.
how many special ed students are there? 4 or 6?
So we were looking at trying to keep it no more than about 40%. Because then if you get beyond that, then you're kind of tipping the scale, right? And so that was kind of our goal. Some classrooms end up getting a little bit more than that, and some have a little bit less. But that was kind of the direction we gave for staff, or for the principals in creating their master schedule.
I would imagine they're on everywhere on the spectrum. The most need.
Yes. And some students aren't successful in the co-teach setting, and they might need more support or might need a setting that's a little bit smaller. And so that might not be the best fit for them. And so all of those needs are taken into account as well.
Right, Jen. Is this, is the idea to expand to elementary? Or is there a reason it's been focused on secondary?
Focused on secondary because we want to make sure that kids have access to all of the classes that they need for graduation credits. When students are taking classes that are not as many general education classes, right, then they have a hard time getting all the credits that they need. So that was our main focus. And at the elementary level, it has to look a little bit different. And so it's not as easy as saying, well, I'm just going to go to second period and be co-teaching with you and then, do some, maybe second and third period, and then I'll go do something else for a couple of periods. It's a completely different type of model and a completely different type of partnership. We haven't even started the conversation at the elementary level because there's a lot more to it. It's not as, I don't want to say simple, that's not the right word, but that's the only word that's coming to my mind at the moment. It's not as easy to schedule as it is at the secondary level. Mm-hmm. So for next year and beyond, I've had conversations with well, actually, let me start it this way. Our success with unified athletics at the high school level has inspired working at the elementary and middle school level as well. So I've had conversations with KPMS and Goodman about expanding the idea of unified to the middle school level next year. They're committed. And then similar conversations with Swiftwater and Harbor Heights and Vaughan as well for next year. Harbor Heights and Swiftwater have done a little bit of dabbling into unified so far this year, but Vaughan is really excited and wants to learn from what they have done and expand as well. So I'm excited for that. We're in. We're going to do it. We'll find the staff. We'll figure out a way to make it happen. So that's really exciting. Patrick mentioned it, the inclusive playground at Harbor Heights. The first step is getting those portables out and then being able to do the groundwork for that. So that is an ongoing conversation, ongoing project. The portables would be the first step for that. Additionally, sampling and reviewing additional intervention materials that our staff can use to be able to support students, and then continuing to align our programs and provide professional development for our staff and for other staff who are supporting our students. So I would like to bring up Emily Ducharme and Brianna Tragesser, who are our Special Education Parent Advisory Committee co-chairpersons. They are going to provide their annual report. So I'm going to give you the clicker, the clicker of power.
Woohoo. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Brianna. I'm the chair of the CPAC. This was our first year as an official committee, so we just wanted to give some feedback about what we've done and what we plan for the future. So we've hosted 5 parent education nights and a resource fair. So the parent education nights we've held like once a month, and they're on various topics related to special education to improve access to resources and build relationships within the PSD community. And most recently, we had a very successful resource fair with outside providers, community partners, and other services that special education families are interested in accessing. We've promoted opportunities for parents to connect, not only through the resource fair, but through other opportunities and outreach programs to resources like DDA and other community partnerships as well. We've supported Jana and her team in improving inclusionary practices within the district. So we've given feedback as parents. We've spent time with, parents ourselves, but with other parents in the district. We've spent time with teachers, and we've looked at successes. We've looked at discrepancies. We've looked at patterns over the years, and just have worked really collaboratively with the district to work on improving that, access to the least restrictive environment for our students. And lastly, we've provided feedback, which resulted in updating and adding to the special education section of the PSD website. So we've supported the streamlining of kind of accessibility of information so that parents and teachers can find information more easily on the district website. We've provided more in-depth information about programs, how to qualify for special education services, and differentiating aspects of each program, as well as other services that the district provides. I hand it to Emily for future plans.
Don't need that power. I will piggyback on what Jana said. As far as our future plans, I think the thing that I'm most excited about is expanding Unified. I have a freshman at Peninsula who jumped into Unified, and she's a cheerleader, so they jumped in with the cheer, and that is the best program that this district does, like far and wide. And the possibility of expanding that with access and just really creating a feeder program so that by the time these kids hit Gig Harbor or Peninsula, it's a natural, like, hey, yep, you're going to be a part of Unified, and this is what it is. And that just really goes towards expanding the inclusive culture that we're looking for. We are going to continue to encourage opportunities for disability awareness and representation on the Peninsula School District social media. This district has an incredible social media presence, very well known in the community. Would love to see additional representation of things beyond Unified. There's really great pockets of things happening in these elementary schools and at these middle schools, and it's just not something that has been broadcasted. We would love to see that expanded. Again, piggybacking on the inclusive program or the inclusive playground. I can't imagine being a kid at an elementary school and not being able to access the playground. That just feels like that's got to be a huge priority. And as you know, as we have talked in our CPAC meetings, we just really would love to see that happen, and are here to support and whatever we could do. That parent education series was so often just a highlight of my week. There's nothing better than seeing people come in and be able to sit down and learn about a topic. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do as a CPAC, is just help educate the community as a whole as to, like, hey, these are things that are available, and this is what it is, and this is how you can, how you can support your child, and these things are all available. And so we are looking forward to expanding that this year as far as topics based on parent feedback and staff. And then just to continue to encourage the proactive communication between families and district staff. I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do, is just, hey, like, they're not scary. Go have a conversation. Let's just talk. And we're really all on the same team here. So that's that. Oh, yeah. All right. I'm back.
Have you guys, are you ready yet? Do you think you're mature enough as a group yet in, membership and numbers to maybe start venturing into some state level work and advocacy work? Because I know when we talked at the beginning, that was one of the most, looking at examples of other districts with their CPAC groups. There were a few of those that seemed like it could be a really powerful voice. Because now not only have you expanded your knowledge of district operations, I mean, what a unified front we could present.
Not yet. I would love that. I've discussed that with many people throughout. This is kind of year 2 of the CPAC, year 1 in the official capacity. That's definitely on my radar. I don't think we're there yet. I would love to get there because I look at that gap in funding and I go, oh man, we got to fix that. And I love and appreciate all of our administrators, but you don't know what you don't know, and there are things that you can only get from that parent voice. And I think that would be super powerful, but we're definitely not there yet.
Well, regardless, I think this year has been really impressive, and I'm so proud of you guys, and thank you so much for your hard work and keeping at it. And, I really think in a very short amount of time, you've come so far in terms of your cohesion and professionalism as a group, and it's only going to get better. So thank you both for your leadership. Thank you, Jana. I'm really proud of this group and can't wait to see more of the future plans.
I have a question for Hannah. So we know the state significantly underfunds special ed, and we're choosing to use basic ed allocation for that. Is that by doing so, in order to support our special education students, are we taking away anything from any other programs because of the fact that we're not getting full funding on special ed from the state? We're choosing not to use levy money to offset that. What are we having to move money from somewhere else as a result of that?
That's probably a better question for Ashley.
And she's not here.
And she's not here tonight,
Right.
but I talked with her this morning because I anticipated that there would be more questions about the budget. She wasn't able to attend tonight, but she will be at the board meeting later this month, and so I will let her know of your question and she will address it at that time.
Okay, thank you.
May I just say
Other questions?
I just have a comment. Is that all right? I just want to say thank you so much. You invited me into your meeting, and my preconception was to have this event, and listening to the parents and the needs and the desires of the parents and what you thought would match better. I hope that you understood that we listened, and I'm just really encouraged to support your group as it grows and that it becomes the way that we do things in Peninsula School District for all of our special education families. So I just want to thank you for trusting me enough to come in, and I hope I didn't surprise you by saying absolutely whatever it is that you want. That's what we're going to do. So I can get carried away with my great ideas, and that was just a great example of just, making sure that you knew that your voices were really important. So I look forward to supporting Unified at all levels. I can't wait. And I'm really, I don't know if I would have imagined 2 years ago the things that your group has really put together. And you're only in year one. So just wonderful, wonderful. And all of the families that you represent this evening that are not here, just pretty amazing, because I know that when I first came here in Peninsula School District, I met with many, many families, and I know that we have many things that we structurally need to fix, and we can't do that without you. So thank you for all of that.
I will just say that we have, I think when I think back to that conversation, we're getting there. We're on the path. Like it's coming. We'll get there.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. I love the unified expansion, of course. That's my favorite program as well. But the co-teach numbers that's just really exciting. I have a friend from years and years ago, probably this was 20 or more years ago, who has 5 children, 2 of whom were special ed. This was in another district, a very large district, and 3 of them were gen ed students, and they were in some classes that really just, as young students, really everyone in the family benefited, and it was just a really cool thing to see, and so I'm really excited about those numbers. Thanks for that.
Of course.
I will just jump in real quick and just say ditto to what everyone has said, thanking this team. I think I've been able to sit in on a couple of your meetings, and I've learned a lot, and I've also learned more about concerns and what each of you are challenged with in our schools. So it's been great to come alongside with you and try to figure out best solutions. So I know that you say you're not ready, but I think we're going to tap you anyway for at least for
Used to that.
yeah. So speaking to our legislators, because it's so much more impactful when they hear from you than us carrying the message. It's really your message and how we're working together. So thank you for at least being willing to consider doing that. And then I do have one technical question, Jana, for you, and this might be an Ashley question, but I'm curious about that delta in the safety net, the application versus what's awarded. How is that determined?
So we apply, we create it's an application for each of the students we submit for additional, to be basically reimbursed for the the cost to serve the students. And so there's a committee at the state level who reviews each of those individual applications, and then if they feel that there's something that needs to be deducted, then they make a deduction. We had a few deductions last year. One was because there was a high school and beyond plan that was missing from our submission. Those types of things are what the deductions were for. And so that's how those happened. Was recent legislation this past session that was passed and signed that changes when the process for reviewing those individual student applications. They won't be making deductions. Now they'll just be kind of verifying, right, that we have all of the information that we need. So I don't know how that will impact. We haven't had that process happen yet with our submission, and so we'll have to wait and see how that changes things.
I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
When I was in elementary school, I was in second grade, I was seated next to Paul Camerzel. Paul was a special needs student. And what you're doing with the co-teaching and everything, I think it's so great because it's not only for those students, but it's for all the students to learn to accept, to embrace them. For me and Paul, we became best buddies, and I was helping him through so much. I don't know that they intended it that way for the other students to do, but the knowledge that I gained was beyond math and reading and stuff like that, because it's helping him. So that what you're doing is beyond helping just the special needs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our reports for the evening. So we are on item 7 on the agenda, which is old business. We have item 7.1, which is a review of our WASDA position statements. These are the legislative and resolutions statements that we put forth earlier this month. So for those two positions from the legislative committee, we received a due pass. So that's excellent. So those will go in the catalog for the General Assembly in September with a due pass recommendation. That was for the Clean Buildings Act funding and funding safe, healthy, contemporary school buildings. So special shout out to Jennifer Butler, who spearheaded that. It was unanimously voted in by the committee. So outstanding. The resolutions committee met shortly thereafter. We provided 3 resolutions. These are more like belief statements, longstanding positions for WASDA. They had 27 proposals, 20 did not pass. We're given a do not pass recommendation. 5 were passed, and 2 of them were tabled. So for we put forth 3. One of them was our position on literacy. There was another statement from combined Shoreline School District and Lake Washington School District. They put forth a similar position on literacy. So what this committee asked us to do was meet with those 2 school districts and combine our work. So I have that here, and I'll read it in a minute. We can discuss. One of the other resolutions that we put forth was our capital project construction, which was given a due pass, but when I submitted it, I flubbed the language a little bit, and I made a redundant sentence at the end. So I promised that I would put forth an amendment that just fixed the language, even though it already has a due pass. What received a do not pass, however, was our social media policy. And when they give you a do not pass recommendation, they also provide us with committee reasoning. So the committee reasoning was that some members felt school staff and administration should meet students where they are. So basically there are some committee members who felt that social media is here, our kids are using it, there's really nothing we can do to mitigate that, so we should just work within that framework. Another reason was some committee members were concerned about the responsible party for what is determining what is or what is not appropriate. So in our language, we mentioned something about appropriate use of technologies. Another one said there's a current law that already prohibits access or limits use of social media. So for example, we have that policy in our district that says we don't allow it. So they felt it was redundant. And then the last one was the first part of the proposal read that we are opposed to social media, but in the end, we kind of picked up with working with our families and community about the benefits of social media. So they thought that was contradictory language. So next steps are to, well, I've already met with Shoreline and Lake Washington, and we have combined our proposal. So I'm going to read a proposal now. This is on literacy. I will read it, and we have to vote on it to approve it. And then the resolutions committee has agreed to meet on May 20th just to hear this one combined position. So the revised statement reads, WASDA believes that literacy is foundational to all learning and supports collaboration. Whoops, I'm sorry, that's the old one. WASDA believes that literacy is foundational to all learning and central to supporting every student in informed decision-making, active civic participation, achieving their academic goals, and increased economic opportunities. Therefore, local school boards should adopt policies that support evidence-based literacy acquisition that improves all students' literacy rates and eliminates disparities in literacy across all grades. So, any discussion about that?
I'm sorry, you said this twice. Shoreline and Lake Washington have already been consulted that this is what the result of that?
Yes.
Okay.
So I met,
Okay.
so we Zoomed one director from each of our districts,
Okay.
and we kind of looked at their statement piece, which really focused on literacy as a civil right,
Mhm.
and then ours as a foundational skill. The resolutions committee favored the foundational skill language.
Mhm.
So really, it's our first sentence, that foundational skill, and then the rest of it is their language, so it's kind of combining both of those positions. So they are also with their boards taking action and voting, so we don't have an opportunity to change this language. It's either
Gotcha.
this, or we'd have to go back
Okay.
and have another meeting about it.
There is opportunity, though. The good thing about this, I know there's other school districts across the state that are going to be submitting their own positions, and there's also probably going to be another bylaw resolution that goes out to change the bylaws again this year. But if you get it on, it may not be exactly what we want this year, but in the future years, we can come back and revisit it and tweak it, you know, if we don't quite, if it's not a good fit. So, I was on the committee for a long time, so I just know how, so, anyway, it's good work that we're able to, sometimes you'll get 3 position statements that are all submitted, and they're all very similar, and then you end up voting 2 off and then doing an amendment to change 1. So it makes way more sense to work with the other school districts to collaborate than to have all 3 get shut down.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just a quick question, was there a discussion of trying to include language like we did for the Clean Buildings Act, I'm sorry, for facilities? Locating evidence-based literacy instruction within, somehow in basic ed for funding purposes?
I think that's what the civil rights piece was, leaning more towards funding. So there's two, I don't know, camps of thought here. One is legislative and one is position.
Right.
So anything that has to do with funding or passing laws or supporting legislation that way lives in the legislative committee. And there is a literacy piece that went through related to that. This is more of a broader statement, just we believe literacy is foundational to all life skills, not from what we do in school and beyond. So yes, I would say, as Preston would say, yes, and that lives in the legislative committee. All right. So I think let's take a vote on this so we can get it passed or not, and then we'll talk about the other ones. Does that work? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the amended language on our literacy position statement?
I'll make a motion to approve the language literacy.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Chuck and seconded by Jennifer to approve the amended language on the literacy proposal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent, motion is carried. Okay, the easy one was the capital project construction. So, like I said, it's just removing a sentence at the end. So the proposed language is WASDA believes that safe, healthy schools that support high-quality teaching and learning are foundational to basic education. Financing school facilities is a partnership between the state and local districts. The state's fiduciary responsibility must be adequate to support mandated initiatives. That is correcting the last sentence that said originally, the state's fiduciary responsibility must be adequate to support mandated initiatives and ensure safe, healthy schools that support high-quality teaching and learning, which we moved to the beginning, but I just didn't drop it off on the submission, so. Any discussion? This one has already passed. We're just cleaning up the language. Okay. All right, we'll still need to vote on it, though, to make the amendment. So is there a motion to approve the amended language on the capital project construction proposal?
I'll move to approve the amended language.
A second.
Okay. It's been moved by Lori and seconded by David to approve the amended language on the capital project construction proposal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent, motion is carried. Okay, and then the last one is the social media position. Now, this one was given a do not pass, so the way forward on this is it will show as recommended do not pass by the committee, but it still will show, it could still pass, essentially. So if the body decides to vote on it, if more directors want it, then it would still pass. But they will give the original statement that we submitted, the do not pass recommendation, and the reasons why they selected do not pass. So we were asked to kind of address those issues and submit an amendment, which will be a rider on the bottom, so that the body, when voting, can see we've cleaned up the language or addressed the concerns. So the revised statement that addresses those concerns that I just read off reads, WASDA believes emerging research shows social media can harm youth mental health and development. Social media platforms expose young people to content that can promote unhealthy social comparisons, can exacerbate social isolation, anxiety, self-doubt, and depression, and can enable harassment, stalking, and cyberbullying. We encourage districts to partner with families and health experts to follow research on social media impacts and to implement policies and procedures that align with best practices related to developmentally appropriate access and use of social media. That is what we attached, but throughout the day, we kind of worked on the first sentence a little bit.
I think it's, well, yeah, I think what we have shows that.
It shows the updated?
Yeah, because we took out the emerging, right?
Well, we took out emerging, and so we decided to align this with the Surgeon General. So actually,
Yeah.
the first statement should
Yeah.
read, WASDA believes, following the Surgeon General's guidelines, that social media can harm youth mental health, well-being, and development, and then the rest is the same. Any discussion about that? This is just us. We're not working with any other districts, so this is just for us to submit.
The amended version will be included in the handbook, though, for the not the general assembly, for the
For the resolutions,
The res-
I believe it'll have our original statement.
Yeah.
Do not pass with the reasons, and then this amended statement.
Right. So, yeah, because I agree with you. I mean, we can have, I've been on that, attended it 10 years, and some of the ones that say do not pass, once we read the amended, it flips to a pass. So, I'm glad we were able to make that change.
Yeah.
Quick question, just quickly, did other districts have social media? Or were the only one?
No one else had social media, but I was approached by a couple other districts who serve on the resolutions committee, and they absolutely loved it. They were concerned with some of the language too, the contradictory language. So I think when we submit this, either, I've sent this off to the districts to look at, they can submit an amendment as well. So I think Highline is one who is interested especially, so either they will submit it on their own, and it will be 2 districts submitting the same language, or when it comes time for the assembly in September, we'll work with the districts who are interested in that, and then it's kind of get out the vote, really, just inform other districts about what this is and what it means. There are many districts that are part of this lawsuit, and so I would expect all of those districts to vote for this. So I think it's a much stronger position. Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna mention it, but since you just did, can you, for the sake of the audience, discuss that very quickly what that lawsuit's about?
Sure. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want me? Yeah, great.
So the social media litigation, over the past 3 years, France Law Group attorneys and staff have been working tirelessly with about 1,000 school districts across the country, first with Jewel Labs, about the vaping. In December 22, they did receive a settlement. The social media litigation is also with the France Law Group, and that is addressing TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, as well as other social media companies. I know that they have said that they would be more than willing to come and speak at a board meeting if you'd like to have them. I think it would be an interesting conversation. Definitely the lawsuit alleges that there has been mental health crisis among children and teenagers and a higher proportion of anxiety, depression, and thoughts of self-harm, all of which severely affect their ability to succeed. And so this is a collective effort with school districts. We had not signed on to the Jewel lawsuit, but I know that you felt very strongly about the social media, and so we have submitted all of our paperwork and we have been accepted. So it's really up to you if you wish to have them Zoom in or have someone, I don't know if they would be available in person, but definitely a Zoom conversation.
Okay, other questions, discussion about the position? And if not, can we get a motion to approve the amendment to the position?
I'll move to approve the amended position on social media.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Jennifer and seconded by Chuck to approve the amended position on social media. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Motion is carried. So I will get these sent off to WASDA, and I will meet with the Resolutions Committee on the 20th to go over the literacy, and I will update everyone after that. And then otherwise, we will see these on the agenda in September at the Ledge Conference. Okay, we added item 7.2, a review of our HIB study session. So we just wanted to follow up on this. At that time, Superintendent Barr mentioned that she was going to convene a group, so we just kind of wanted to see if we could follow up with you on that and look at what next steps are.
Yeah, so I appreciate the opportunity. And so this is May, and we do have some staff members that will be coming in the 1st of July. And so that will be definitely one of the first things that they will be tasked for our chief and our deputy chief of staff of schools, chief of schools, chief of staff. And so I look forward to having a conversation with them as they come in. They're both very, very veteran in this area, and it will be a really good opportunity for them both to look at our policy and practices. This is the season of doing our handbooks and making sure that we are legally defensible and that we have all the changes for our families for the fall, as well as an opportunity to work directly with the administrators, because as we know, administrators in the schools know students directly. Being a former principal myself, I took it very seriously with the children and the families that were under my immediate care, and looking at a K-12 system and what makes sense for discipline in a handbook for a kindergartner is much different than what it looks like for high school. And so both of them know that this is within their task. I think maybe even at least one of them is watching right now. And so I will tell you that you have an opportunity. It's also really an opportunity to embrace the imperfections of our system, to listen to street data, which is really listening to our families, and having our new people come in with fresh eyes from other systems and really engaging with the community and engaging directly with the administrators. Because as you have heard me say time and time again, it is an expectation that if you are a principal or an assistant principal in this system, that that is within the structure of your responsibility of a principal. And the work that we've been doing with our principals this year with AWSP directly speaks to all of those things, including safety and security and anti-harassment, intimidation, and bullying. and aligning that to the policies, but really more the practices and making sure that students know that they are in a safe environment. So I look forward to having both of them spearhead that work along with the principals.
Thank you.
And that encompasses multiple pieces, you know, the legality, I know that during our administrative retreat, we're already looking at having legal representation in to talk with the importance of doing certain things. And, you know, quite frankly, things change. So whether it's Title IX or Title I laws, all of the things that come federally, they change every year. And so we have to be responsive to that, but we also need to make sure all of our administrators know that the law has changed.
Yeah.
Whatever federal dollars or state dollars that we receive.
One kind of question, and it's kind of related to what we were just talking about with WASDA positions and social media. Just kind of a request that within these conversations that social media is part of them. I do feel, and I think maybe I mentioned it before, we say it in our position statement about the harm on mental health well-being. We've seen the impacts and how it is, it's not between 9 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. now, it's 24 hours a day. And I don't think anymore we can have these conversations about how we can support our students, right? Without locating somehow how social media works within all of these.
I completely agree with you. I think that could be really a study session to really listen. The other thing, that's important to note, I always tell administrators as well, they have their own families. And so when things happen from outside and then come into the school building, you're right, it never ends. And it is 24/7. So it really is a partnership with families and parents, because many of the things that happen outside affect students and families with inside when they walk in the rooms. So we know that we can do what we can during the school day, and we know that social media impacts students in a variety of different ways. So the cell phone policy was a small part, but really I think I commend this board for doing something that other school districts have not been able to either wrap their hands around or don't believe that they could do it. And I really appreciate the educators in our system, because I recognize that it is hard. I don't have a teenager at home. However, when I see teenagers and I engage with them, I recognize how difficult it is to be a parent with young children with cell phones and the pressures that all of that I can only imagine as a mother, but we are committed as educators to figuring that out. So I think that we are on the path, and I appreciate you also being cognizant about a social media litigation as well, because we adults, we are responsible. Thanks.
I was going to say during board comments that last weekend I attended the Students Distinction, did a panel for that, and I had academics. And we, I know most of you were panelists, but, one of my questions to the academic students that we interviewed was, this year we stopped cell phones and social media in the schools. And I asked them, how did that impact them with their studies, and would they recommend all schools do it? Of course, these are people with 4.0, 4.2 GPAs, right? So they were like, well, we don't really use our cell phones. We're too busy studying and paying attention. But they did say that they noticed that it was having a very positive impact for the other students in the room, because they were able to focus on what the teacher was putting out. And instead of maybe if the teacher finished 15 minutes early, that instead of being on phone or social media, they were working on homework or doing something that was more productive. So the students thought it was very good that we did it, and they suggested that other schools follow suit. So just a little feedback there.
Any other thoughts or comments on that? No? Thank you for doing that work. sure that we are all looking forward to what comes out of that, or participating however we can, supporting that work.
One other question, will we be able to communicate that out once the plan is, because I'm imagining it's gonna come a bit over the summer, so is the,
Yes, so it will be internally, it will start internal, right, with our, immediately with our assistant principals. And that is something that we do on a regular basis. They do take the handbook and compile it, but it will be more extensive. So we will have them report out to you. And that'll be a good way for you to get to know them as well.
Good.
Turn that on. So I was having a conversation with Chris earlier about there are some benefits to the social media as far as being able to generate income through like podcasts and stuff like that. And even though we want to not have kids focused on it during their learning, we still have to teach it. So there is this bit of crossover. Some of these cognitive aware of it. It is the future. Chris earlier, there's a couple living with right now that helping. They are actually making streaming. They're trying to explain it. I have no clue. But so we are an educational.
All right, that is it for old business. So item 8.1 is under new business. We have board operating protocols. This is something we've talked about several times. We've actually put one forth a few years ago, but never formally adopted it. So we've been revising and looking to see what other districts are doing, what makes the most sense. And a board operating protocol is an important way that we can articulate to the community, to anyone, what we do. And I think that's a large misconception that people have about what the role of the board is. We live really in governance, whereas the superintendent is in administration and management. Schools are the closest to all of our students. So all of the things that we see happening with our students usually should be addressed at a school level. That's what we're trying to get at, and that's what we're trying to support. We are here to make sure that we have policies that support everything, that we are fiscally responsible, that we are adopting a budget that supports the needs of the students. We do hire and evaluate the superintendent, and ultimately turn over the administration and the management of the district to her. We are a representation of public interest, whereas the superintendent acts in the public interest. So the board operating protocols is just really a concrete way to articulate those differences. And then additionally, we have some items on there about just what we do, what we don't do. I'm not going to read it in its entirety. Our first read is linked in the agenda, so anyone, please feel free to look at that. And I guess really it's a first read. We don't take action on it, but if there are any comments or discussion that we want to have tonight, I would open the floor for that.
No, I'm glad you're doing it. For some reason, I thought we had done this.
We never
4 years
adopted
ago.
it. Yeah, we
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
this might be. Do we need to be concerned with crediting our sources? Since we did, we did do a lot of research and talk about.
No,
Okay.
it's yours.
Okay, because it bears little resemblance to.
Fine,
where
we looked
went.
at Walla Walla and South Whitby.
Well,
Because they have great operating
Well,
protocols.
no, and WASDA.
And
we looked at
WASDA.
yeah,
No,
and we
I think
looked at
everyone
WASDA.
is probably pulling from the same. If
That
you
was the
look-
impression I got when I was
Yeah.
looking around at them as well, because I saw a few phrases appear on more than one,
Yeah.
so, okay. That's all.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions about it? All right, I think we will put it on the agenda then at the next meeting to officially vote on and adopt it over the next couple of weeks. Please read through it. If there's any comments or changes that you want to make to it, this will be the window in which to do so. So with that, we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Great. So I am going to call John Yellowlees up for a literacy update first, and then I have 4 items to share with you. Actually, I think it's a teaching and learning update.
It's teaching and learning, but mostly ELA adoption update. So thank you, Board of Directors and Superintendent Barr. So I'll take some time just to update you on where we are in our elementary, middle school, and high school ELA adoption cycles. There's a lot going on. I'm going to stick to my notes because there's been some new developments even as of today. So before I get into the actual adoptions, I'm going to talk a little bit about the survey that was open for most of the month of April. So we had a survey, ELA survey. It was open to families in the community, and we had, let me find the number here, a total of 689 responses, which is pretty high for our community when we do a survey. So a lot of interest in ELA, and that was K through 12. Approximately 61% of those responses were from elementary families, and 39% were from secondary families. The survey was live, like I said, for about a month. It was on our website, it was on social media, Parent Square, and it was included in school newsletters. So it went out to the community. We got good feedback from that survey, and I'll talk a little bit more about additional information and feedback we've received from families. But all of our adoption committees have been using that data from families as they go about making decisions on ELA adoption. So next, I will jump into elementary. So earlier this spring, the Elementary ELA Adoption Committee went through the rubric screening process. This process narrows down a whole bunch of options to a select few that then the adoption committee considers as they go through the process of considering which curricula they're going to specifically pilot. The elementary committee is comprised of classroom teachers from each of the schools with all grade levels represented, as well as principal representation, and we have some special programs representation on those committees also. In addition to the broader family survey that I just discussed, we've also been conducting elementary listening sessions. So the purpose of these sessions was to provide a different method. So we have surveys. Some families choose to engage in surveys, some families don't. So we wanted to create other opportunities for families to come into the schools, provide feedback, talk with teachers who are engaged in this process. And schools have been hosting those sessions throughout the last several weeks. Our reading specialist, Kelly Pruitt, has also been working with hosting family nights for parent groups and conducting research and gathering data through that method. So as part of this process, elementary staff and students were also surveyed. So initiative community survey, getting information from these family sessions that we did. We also surveyed students and teachers. We had 90 responses from elementary staff with good representation from all grade levels, and we had about 178 student responses. Mostly 3rd and 4th grade students responded, but that was from each of the elementary schools was represented in that data. So all of the survey and listening session data were reviewed by the Elementary Adoption Committee just recently. They met on April 25th, so they went through all of that information that's been gathered from all of the different feedback sessions and the survey and the information from students and staff, and really used that as they were making decisions and looking at the various curricula options for the committee to consider. And also at the April 25th meeting, the Adoption Committee reached consensus to pilot 2 programs next year. The first is the Core Knowledge Language Arts Program, also known as CKLA, and the Wit and Wisdom Program. So this pilot will begin in the fall of 2024, and over the course of that pilot, there'll be multiple other opportunities for families to engage in the process, provide feedback, and give us their thoughts on each of these different pilot curriculum. So again, that's the Core Knowledge Language Arts Program, CKLA, and Wit and Wisdom. So those will be the 2 programs that have been narrowed down to pilot in the fall. We'll begin that in the fall and do that over the course of the 24-25 school year. So that's the status of the elementary adoption. I will just kind of pause if there are any questions before I move on to middle school.
Have to ask, did you guys use AI at all to help process all that data? Because that's a lot. And where's Chris? I'm just thinking about, recently took a WASA survey on an executive director search, and it was a different type of survey than I've taken before. And I'm just curious if using that, from what, we've read and understand, it can help maybe detect patterns and themes and stuff that maybe mere mortals might miss.
I believe some AI may have been used. I don't want to misspeak, but James kind of pulled together and worked with the secondary curriculum, and Natalie and Kelly did that with the elementary. So they pulled all of that data together, disaggregated it by level, and then looked at all of the information. I believe may have used some.
Yeah, because that could be very exciting to look at that as an application in an educational setting for all the work that Chris has been doing with teaching and learning.
Yeah, it's very helpful to load that information in and then provide some prompts to get some feedback in a succinct way. So yeah.
So if you want, we can ask James to present that
we can ask him to present it. I can
Mm-hmm.
share it with you all. We have it all in folders that I can share electronically. All of the survey data is broken down in it's easily digestible, so I can share that with the board.
Perfect, thank you.
At what point in the process, once this begins in the fall, would it, if they're piloting these, and there'll be parents, staff, and students all involved with this, at what point in the process, if they determine that neither of them are what they want, that they can stop and back out? There's still going to be a cost if that happens, right?
There is a cost for piloting, yes.
Yeah.
But if we went through that process and reached the point where the teams, based on the pilot and information, all of the feedback we'd received, if they weren't able to come to consensus, we would stop. We'd go back to the drawing board and look at some other alternative options potentially.
Okay, but that's possible that during that cycle, it could come to be that they go, neither of these are going to work out. We need to go back.
It's possible. It's unlikely. I think the process that they've gone through in terms of all of the screening and looking at multiple different curricula and really narrowing it down on these two based on all of the screening and rubric criteria, it would be unlikely that one wouldn't be chosen, but possible.
Yeah, and last thing is, I know we had a lot of talk around the literacy task force and the great work that it was doing. Is any of the work that the literacy task force did play into the curriculum that was selected?
Yes, I will speak to that.
Oh,
I'll speak to the literacy task force in a moment, but the short answer is yes. Yes,
Okay.
Basically the value statements that they worked on and developed last year were kind of a cornerstone of what the elementary, middle, and high school teams were all looking at. It was part of their rubric, so yes. Okay, so middle school, and each of these are at middle, elementary, and high school, or at slightly different places in the process. So middle school is a little farther behind. The adoption committee met recently on April 30th, and this meeting included professional learning, and I'll just reiterate, James Cantonwine is leading this process with the middle and high school staff. Natalie Boyle is leading the process with the elementary staff. So on the 30th, there was some professional learning session related to the science of reading in the middle school context. The team reviewed all of the family and community data at that point. They reviewed the product screening process, and the middle school adoption committee will meet again on May 10th and May 20th to go through the screening process, and we'll convene again on July 10th. So 2 meetings, May 10th and 20th to screen, and then on June 10th, the hope is to identify the curricula that would be piloted next year. So that's where we're at the middle school level. Again, in all likelihood, there will be 2, maybe 3 curricula that we narrow things down to at the middle level to begin a pilot in the fall of 2024. Okay, I'll just pause real quick. Any questions about middle school? Okay, so moving on to high school. So high school started sooner than both elementary and middle school, much further along in the process, and this was slightly expedited due to us being made aware this year that Springboard, the current curriculum, may be going away. So that precipitated kind of an expedited process in looking at what options we might have moving forward to next year. So James got to work quickly with the high school committee. The staff have gone through the same process earlier this year of rubric screening, really looking at what are the available options for ELA at the high school level. They've been reviewing survey data and have been piloting 2 programs. Those 2 programs are ODEL, High School Literacy, and My Perspectives. So the teachers who've been piloting these curricula have solicited input from their students and families throughout the process as they've been piloting the materials. And the high school adoption committee just met today. They spent the day with James and talked through the 2 curricula that they've been piloting. And after a thorough review of both programs, they came to consensus to move the ODEL High School Literacy Program forward to the Instructional Materials Committee. Big part of their decision, I have to say, and having a conversation with James this afternoon was really, the adoption committee really considered that parent feedback and that family feedback and the survey data. A lot of what came through in the survey data was that the desire for students to be reading more whole text and more printable materials. So that was feedback we received from the community. And ODEL is an open education resource, an OER, that focuses on student learning on deep, complex texts, and less on the short, and it's less like our current Springboard curriculum. So it really matches up with what the community and what the feedback that we got from parents and students and families. So next steps with that, we will host a parent preview event to look more closely at the book lists and teaching materials and resources associated with the curriculum in the coming weeks. And the committee will next bring the recommendation to the IMC for consideration. And following that, we would hope to be on a board agenda in June for a board presentation on the ODEL program. Any questions about high school?
Yeah, for me, I'd just like to know, when they're selecting a curriculum, how much do they focus on making sure there's a great deal of rigor in the curriculum, so it's challenging, and how much do they focus on that it's evidence-based or science-based, proven before they select it?
It's a great question. That is part of the screening rubric that they go through. So some of the criteria that they look at is the rigor of the curriculum. Is it evidence-based? Is it based on the science of reading? So there's a whole series of things. That information, the various screening rubric that we're using, can be found on the website, but both of those things you mentioned are definitely things that are considered in selection of a program. Yeah, one of the reasons middle school didn't jump in with high school was to kind of, the pacing is important with elementary, because sometimes you can find, a K-8 program, and there are also 6 through 8 programs. So middle school will be looking closely at what happened in high school and the elementary adoption, and of course the goal is to have as much alignment as possible, but following the screening rubric, hopefully, even if it's not the same publisher or part of the same curriculum, we would hope to find the same characteristics as in the rubric for each of the 3 levels.
A quick question. Is it the teachers that are doing the piloting in the high school, is it all grade levels, or is it predominantly like freshman English teachers, or is it throughout? I guess that applies to every school.
Yeah, there's a good mixture at the high school level of ELA teachers. So it's not all of them, but good mixture from each grade level, and the same at the elementary and middle level. We try to get good representation from each of the, K through 5, 6 through 8. Yep.
The adoption, though, is from 9 through 12 in high school.
At the high school level, yes.
It's all levels.
9 through 12 curriculum.
Yeah. And it's very unusual that we would do a K-12 all in one year with a small teaching and learning staff, but the high school and Springboard and middle school, there were no choices. So we were forced, but I think it's been a really great opportunity because there will be alignment from TK all the way up to 12.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
The criteria and the screening protocols that we've gone through will create that common thread throughout the K through 12 continuum. I do think that, again, high school was somewhat expedited. We did find out as we were in the process already that Springboard would give an extension for a year, so we we know that middle school can continue to use that curriculum next year, so we did slow that down a little bit to allow for a more thoughtful and intentional process and to see what was happening at both the elementary and high school level. So I think we're well on our way, and the high school team have done a great job, and it came to consensus today, even though I think both had pros and cons for each of the curricula that they were looking at, but landed on the one that again that parent feedback and community feedback and student feedback played a prominent role. So last, I will just say a few words, and just so you know, all of this information is on our website. James updated it as of today, so in the high school section of the website, the ELA adoption, it's all updated and current as of today. So last but not least, I'm just going to say a few words about the Reading Task Force. On May 22nd, so coming up this month, Natalie Boyle and Lisa Ray will be bringing back the 100% Reading Task Force that met last year. This was the team that met multiple times over the course of the year, and David, as you mentioned, they created these guiding principles that have been at the forefront of the ELA adoption work this year. So the May meeting will be a time to touch base and really looking at three things. Provide updates on the literacy professional learning teachers have been going through this school year, the 23-24 school year, primarily with letters training. They'll preview the process that our ELA adoptions have been going through and taking, and preview the materials that will be piloted at elementary in particular in 24-25, and gather feedback on how to evolve the group's work into a sustainable plan that can be implemented in the 24-25 school year. So those are the three things that we hope to do with bringing that team back together here on May 22nd. And I believe the invites have gone out for that, and Natalie and Lisa will be looking forward to bringing that group back together. Any questions?
Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I promise I will be brief. 4 things. I just wanted to remind everyone that the Eagle Quest Lottery is still open. So that is on our website, and all the directions and information are on there. So if families wish to be in that new program of 2, 3, and 4, 5 out in Evergreen, the lottery is open, and you will be a better winner than the real lottery, than the Powerball. I wanted to just let you know that yesterday I had the opportunity to present with another superintendent. We presented at the superintendent conference, AI's use for lesson planning to meet the needs of diverse populations, special education, EL, etc. So it was a real honor to present both with a small rural school district superintendent and myself. And I just have to say, leaving that, those were the state superintendents all over, many of who are going to retire, and many of the new ones were there as well. I found myself, I told Chris this because he really helped put together the PowerPoint. There was a moment probably halfway through that I realized that when I was talking about creating chat bots and the things that we are doing here in Peninsula School District, that there was not the understanding that superintendents really are, many school districts are back to just how to use Chat GPT, like to respond or maybe to write a response to an email. And we were talking about something very different. So I've asked Chris to think about coming together with all of the teachers who have been involved in the work that we've been doing in Peninsula. And do we have a date for you? Next meeting. So that's a teaser. So if there's ever a time that you want to be present, it will be next board meeting, because it's pretty amazing. And I was very honored to represent the work that they have been doing, for sure. I wanted to say that this is Teacher Appreciation Month, and how appreciative we are. We have really been through a journey. I'm just thinking, when I first started 3 years ago, we still were, how many feet away from each other. We were wearing masks, and we didn't have athletics. I mean, we have gotten to a place, we didn't have dances. And so within 3 years, our teachers have really experienced amazing growth around technology, but also really the transition back to in-person learning. And I just want to say how impressed wherever I am. I was at the track program at Pioneer last week. I've been walking into other high school, whether I'm in a kindergarten class, our teachers really are highly professional and really committed to students. And I just really appreciate it. It's an honor and a pleasure. I was a classroom teacher for 18 years, teaching science and health, and know that every single day you get up and you have your students and you really, you have to master both personalities in the classroom. So, and each class is a little bit different. They have their own personality, and year after year. And so I just, it is an honor to represent Peninsula staff, all staff, but this month particularly teachers. Also, lastly, I just wanted to say that I have been certified as an executive council representing AASA Region 1, and so I look forward to having my first meeting in Washington, D.C. in July. It means that I am representing Region 1, which is really all of the West Coast, and there are 2 of us that represent the nation, the national superintendents for the West Coast. So I'm very honored. I'm a little scared, but I'm really honored and excited for the work and really those policies that we look at a federal level. Many of those policies are federally funding things such as special education, Title I, and making sure that we have a recruitment pathway with our principals, our superintendents, our teachers, educators, our para-educators, and bus drivers, and all of the staff that we represent, as well as looking at safety and security in schools nationally. So, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to board discussion and comments to wrap up the evening. Who wants to start? Who started last time?
I already said I went to.
I'll be sure.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So, I do want to say I appreciate our team and all they do, being Teacher Appreciation Month every day. Teachers impact lives. Simple things they say, the greeting. When I look back at the teachers that I had, the impacts they've had on my life, it's insurmountable. So I want to say that I appreciate the teachers we have here, and I also recognize that it takes the whole team to make this district. Appreciate you all. All.
You already mentioned I attended the unified soccer game last week. It was a lot of fun. Also, the Gig Harbor and Peninsula High School soccer game was a little bit lopsided, but it was still fun to watch. And then the Students of Distinction. And sort of piggyback what Chuck says, I don't remember the name of every one of my high school teachers, but I still remember the names of all my elementary school teachers because we were with them for the whole year, right? The high school, there were so many of them every year, but I still remember after all these years, all the names of my elementary school teachers. So it's pretty.
Yeah, I think Teacher Appreciation Week, that's really is the theme. I think it really gave me such joy to see an email today, unsolicited, from a parent giving accolades to their child's teacher. And it was just kind of one of those moments where it seemed like, from, the level of the board, you get caught up in so many things that policy, procedures, and rules, and a lot of these things, and that that just brought me right back to what this is all about, and that the truly the strength of everything that we do is that teacher in that room impacting those students. So the work they do is incredible. I'm the only non-teacher in my extended family. So I have a little bit of imposter syndrome. Maybe that's why I choose to be here, since I substitute taught for a little while, and I thought, I don't know if I can do this. But just so grateful for our incredible teachers, our staff. And I look forward to seeing more stories about our wonderful teachers, social media, emails, and encourage families, have your kids write those thank you notes, because I know, like, my mother and my brother and my sister-in-law, they save them. Those, and, you know, parents too, those handwritten notes of the specific things that they've done really, really matter. So I'll go home and write our notes.
I will also add, just in the spirit of Teacher Appreciation Week, how much I also appreciate teachers everywhere, from back to elementary school, and I can remember the names of most of my teachers as well. But it's a special treat for me, because I just think I would never think like this, to see the ways that our teachers go above and beyond and really just engaging their students. And seeing some teachers that I know outside of school that are, you know, whether it's giving your classroom of younger students a name or something that they all identify with, or I've seen in high school level, you know, slogan that they say every single day when the door shuts and the class starts, or something to get everybody focused. And I just think all of those things those are just special gifts that I think people have that are called to teach, in addition to all the other amazing, you know, things they do. So shout out to our incredible teachers and staff. Also, always a pleasure to be a part of the Students of Distinction, the panel, and getting to meet them and speak to them for just a few minutes more. We had some incredible kids to meet this year, and so that was awesome. And then lastly, I know this is not what it's called. It's not NJROTC. It's NDCC. I think one of the most fun things about being on the board for a few years, I suppose it's a little like parenting, where your kids get older and you get to look back and think about when they were so little, and then all that they've accomplished and what's changed. And two things tonight that I'm reminded of that weren't happening a few years ago. One, I'm reminded of seeing Emily sitting here, is something like the CPAC committee, where it just was an idea, and we went from there to here, basically, you guys presenting your incredible work and just having us on the road to where we need to get to. That was one thing. And the other was just our original rumblings of, could we have a JROTC or an something, DCC, sorry. And I had the privilege of attending their Navy ball a few weeks ago, and Natalie was there as well. And I grew up not with direct ties that I remember to the military. My father and my father-in-law both served, but it was before I was alive. So I didn't grow up with a lot of this tradition, and I frankly was kind of panicked, because I said to Natalie, there's lots of rules if you are familiar with the military. Yes, I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Like, am I on the wrong side? Yes, and all these things, and you can't stand up, or you shouldn't do. And however, my highlight was in the program. It says, tomfoolery, shenanigans, and hijinks are encouraged. And so that, I love that. But the reason I bring this up, it was an incredible ball. It was fun to see the kids all dressed up. But the coolest thing by far for me, because I haven't spent a lot of time around that program other than seeing them present, you know, the color guard and stuff like that, was just the being able to witness the diversity and the camaraderie in the room amongst the students in ROTC from, it was more than just the Peninsula School District. So, but just the way they were interacting with each other and the laughing, and the kids were having a blast. And this was a program that didn't even exist here 3 years ago. And how far they've come, and just the number of students too. There was probably a couple hundred kids there. It was really inspiring, and it just makes me feel like there's so many more things, you know, we can do. Because it gave, I mean, those students, I would assume, many of them, it was just a need of a you know, that something to join and to just commit to, and and just the friendships. I mean, I can't say enough about it. It was like all the best things of any team or fraternity or group that you could be a part of, or a family, really. So kudos to you especially because you're the one that got the ball rolling. Oh, I should also mention that you'll hate this, but Natalie did give an address at the thing, and it was fantastic. Just about the journey of how we got to having the program, so that's all.
That was a super fun night.
It was really fun.
We did get fined, so for those of you
did.
who haven't been to a military ball, they have a thing called the grog, which in the military is usually comprised of 21 and over drinks, but at high school, it's salad dressing and whatever.
Tabasco.
Whatever you can pour in there. So we all got fined and we all had to go drink it. So I think there are some photos of Lori and I after having just tasted it. Fantastic. That's fantastic. I also want to weigh in and give my appreciation to our teachers and all of our staff. But yeah, well said. I can too. I'm going through my mind. I can rename all of my elementary school teachers. Being a military family, I think I've said that before. My kids, their first, I don't know, mother outside of the home, that was always the person who would take care of them first and look after them first and make sure that they were welcomed and comfortable. And they were usually moving as we were moving. And quick story, last summer we were in Hawaii and my son's 4th grade teacher from New Mexico was in a store with us. And at the time he was 4 foot something, now he's 6'3", and she recognized him and called him out from across the store. And it was just so cute because, you know, always someone has a favorite teacher, and you don't forget your teachers, and I am certain that teachers don't forget their students as well. So with sincere appreciation for the work that you do and gratitude for being part of the team, so looking forward to celebrating this week and still having kids in schools. I'm excited to be able to go and contribute to the Gig Harbor High School parent lunch for teacher appreciation on Thursday. I also just want to point out, Kristen, you mentioned it, it is a really big deal what you're doing on AASA. So from all of us to you, congratulations. We are so super proud of you. You don't get called to do this work without being an outstanding leader in education and in school districts and in life in general. So really well done and congratulations.
I appreciate your support, and I will do my best to do the best for all the children in the nation. That's really, when we convene, we really are like the Congress for every single child in America. So it's really an honor.
Yeah. Thank you for putting us on the spotlight. That was one thing that you said you wanted to do when you got here. And again, like Lori said, there are things that are happening that we are seeing these goals and these dreams and this vision accomplished through a lot of hard work from a lot of people. So thank you all for that. So I will stop there. Our next meeting will be May 21st, 6:00 p.m. here at Swiftwater, and at